Today we're making apple raspberry crumble, and later I'll show you how to decorate it for a special occasion like Valentine's Day. So the first thing I'm going to do is make our crumble topping. I like to do this by feel rather than using exact measurements. I'll show you how I do it. So I'm going to start with a couple tablespoons of oats, a couple tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and a little scoop of brown sugar. Next I'll put in about half a stick or 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to start mixing it with a spoon, but I really find that the best way to do it is to get in there with your hands once it starts to get a little more combined. So with my impeccably clean hands, I'm going to start rubbing the butter and flour and oats together. The texture I'm looking for is like a dry cookie dough type consistency. So this is a little bit moist. I'm going to add a little more flour. I'm also going to add a pinch of salt and a little bit of almond extract. No more than 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. I'm also going to add some roughly chopped walnuts. So my goal here is to make sure that things are pretty well incorporated so that I don't have loose flour rolling around. All right, so now I'm just going to taste the dough and make sure that it tastes good. It's good. Needs a little more sugar. So I'll just work this in. And now I'm gonna squeeze the clumps of dough together in my hands. It's almost like having little cookies on top. I'll set this aside and then we can work on the apples. So I have a little over 3 pounds of Granny Smith apples, and I'm gonna go ahead and peel these and chop them into pieces. Could you leave the peel on? You could, if you wanted to get rustic, but the flesh of the apple breaks down faster than the skin, so if you cut them into big wedges, then you'll get big pieces of apple skin in the crumble. I really just prefer the texture of the peeled apple. But you'll notice that I'm not terribly fussy with it. It's totally fine if there's a little bit of apple peel here and there. Now I have my apples in a bowl and I'm going to add my raspberries. Now I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. Taste your apples too to see how sweet they are. The apples are pretty tart, and I can count on frozen raspberries probably being tart as well, so I'm adding a few teaspoons of sugar to sweeten it up. I'll add a little pinch of salt just to keep the flavor from being flat, but really, just not too much. Now I'm going to add some minute tapioca. A fruit like an apple isn't going to give off a lot of juice. Raspberries will give off a little bit more. So you don't need as much tapioca as they say on the box. I could probably get away with about a tablespoon and a half for this amount of fruit and this kind of fruit. The beauty of a crumble is that it doesn't have to be super precise. So now I'll mix this all together. Ideally you'd have a bigger bowl than what I'm using here, but hey, we do what we can. Alright, so now the sugar, tapioca is evenly distributed on my fruit. It's time to put it in the baking dishes. So here I have 2 greased baking dishes on a sheet pan just to make it easier to move in and out of the oven. So I have a couple different sizes. The first one I'm going to use is a 1.75 quart baking dish, and then the second one is a 1 quart baking dish. The 1 quart size is great for sharing for 2 people, so that's what I'm going to make my Valentine's Day decoration on. And then the second one is going to go in the freezer, and then that way I can heat it up and have it later. So now I'm going to put my fruit filling into the baking dishes. Alright, so I've put my fruit into my baking dishes. They're pretty full. These are going to shrink down when they cook though, so And they're on a baking sheet, so if they spill over a little bit, I'm not too worried about it. Now I'm gonna put my crumble topping right on top of here. All right, now we'll put this in the oven. Bake your crumble in a preheated 375-degree oven for about 40 minutes to an hour, depending on the size of the dish. If you're planning to freeze one, underbake it now. When you reheat it later, the fruit will continue to cook. The crumble's ready when the fruit's bubbly on the inside and the top is golden brown. On a heavy piece of paper, draw or trace a heart. Use an X-Acto knife to cut out the shape. Now you have your stencil. Place the stencil over the crumble dish and sprinkle on some powdered sugar. Remove the stencil to reveal your sweet and rustic design.